What's up, everybody? We are back with another $2 deck tech for 2DH, format we created to have a new meta for Commander and to make the game more accessible to new players and players on a budget. I'm doing a deck for every color combination, and this is Silumgar, the Drifting Death. I already have a lot of blue decks that run more of a controlling style and have a lot of counter spells, and I thought it would be fun to try a counterless control deck and use all of the blue and black 2-for-1 spells and card advantage spells that can get me to the late game and have Silumgar be the finisher. So Silumgar, really strong with the hexproof. The -1/-1 effect isn't always relevant, but when it is, it can be quite a blowout. We've got effects like Night Howler and Strata Scythe to buff his power and toughness surprisingly fast in the late game. Strata Scythe counts all the lands on the battlefield, so if you have other players in black or blue, you're going to get a really big boost to your general and use him to commander damage somebody out at the end of the game. There's a lot of cards that I haven't been able to run in other decks, like Undercity Plague and Stolen Identity, to as much success as I can run them with Silumgar having the hexproof. These are the kind of spells that I'm going to need to pull away in the late game and to get a lot of card advantage out of a few spells. Being able to make a creature or an artifact every single time you deal damage, it can just be a blowout if there's something like a Worn Power Stone or a Staff of Nin in play. You can get really kind of a runaway train going with these effects. So in order to get to the late game, we're going to have to use a lot of the best card draw spells. You'll find those in blue-black. We've got a ton of great 1-for-1 removal, wrath effects. We've got a ton of really cute 2-for-1 effects, and then I've got some other creatures and finishers in the deck that I'll tell you about. So Lim-Dûl's Vault is just one of those cards that make you want to play this color combination. At instant speed, you can essentially tutor for what you need. You're going to have to pay life every time you don't see what you like in the top 5 cards, but really, I mean, 5 life to go through 25 cards and find what you want is a small price to pay when you're behind and you just need a specific answer, which blue-black often does. There are things that are really hard to deal with in these colors if you're not running counter spells. Monastery Siege, Haunted of Seeing Winds, these are cards that have become staples for me in this format. They're just going to get you through your deck faster. Future Sight, we've talked about before, is just an MVP. Staff of Nin, I'm putting in all of my control decks. And then Mask of Memory is a little bit better with Silumgar and a couple of the creatures that you're going to see later. Also, it's nice in these colors to be discarding cards because you're going to have the reanimation. Siphon Mine is a really sweet card. It puts your opponents just 1 card behind when you draw, and a lot of the times if you cast this on curve, your opponents are not discarding lands, they're discarding things that might not be relevant yet, but could be really good cards for them later, and maybe even creatures that you can reanimate the next turn. Mystic Remora, Preordain, Impulse, these are all pretty basic blue cards. Mold Drifter, Recurring Insight, Treasure Cruise, just these giant blue card draw spells give you so much advantage already that I feel like I can power down a little bit without running counter spells and still have a great chance to win the game just by having a strategy that has a focus and being able just to get to those cards. Diabolic Tutor is going to get me whatever I need. Then we've got a really nice ramp package, Myriad Landscape, this new card from Commander 2015, Thought Vessel, gives me no maximum hand size. Chalice, I really like that it scales. Some basic rocks here, stuff that you've probably seen before, and our good buddy Burnished Heart to round out the ramp package. Alright, we need lots of removal to protect ourselves because we really need to get to that late game before our deck's going to get going. Evil Twin is just one of those clone effects with upside. It can stop someone from swinging at you because they know that you can, in response, just kill their guy. So pretty sweet card. These are the kind of cards that I'm able to run because I'm not running counter spells. So I'm able to kind of explore another area of Magic and do some things that are a little bit more fun. I like to have some decks that maybe aren't the most fierce competitive decks. So this is definitely a lower tier deck without the counter spells, but I'm still able to do lots of cool stuff and experience some really interactive gameplay. Recoil is just a really nice 2-for-1, making someone pitch a card in addition. It just can really punish people swinging at you. Also nice to be able to bounce any permanent, because blue-black has a hard time dealing with artifacts and enchantments without counter spells. Far Away is just one of those really sweet cards that you can use for the fuse cost, a 2-for-1 your opponent. Tragic Slip, Dismember, just some really efficient removal here. Aether Spouts is a card I've run before. It's really good in this deck if people are trying to overrun you. The token strategies especially don't like Silumgar, because he's just going to be able to wreck them in the late game. And then this card is one that, I just always cut it. I never really ran it because I'd be running counter spells or something else. And I've been really impressed with this card. Even on turn 5, sometimes there's 6 rocks out there and a couple utility creatures that you can just, hey, we're just going to time walk the whole table, slow you guys down so that I can get Silumgar out and start doing some stuff before everyone gets carried away. So it's no Cyclonic Rift, but it definitely does some work. Innocent Blood, just a really nice early play. I don't have a ton of creatures early in the game, and in the late game I oftentimes have enough that this card's still really good. Drown in Sorrow. I mostly run this because in addition to Silumgar swinging, the -2/-2 is going to get your opponents to -3/-3 for all their creatures. And I like the Scry, so just one of those cards to kind of help with Silumgar's effect, help make it relevant. And Mutilate is one of those that if you just time it right, you can sweep away your opponent's creatures and not your own. And again, just another thing I can combo with Silumgar. It's fun to wipe the board, but it's even funnier when you're like, hey, I cast Mutilate, and you guys still have 1 toughness, and now I swing with my general, and everyone, is kind of just shaking their head at the value you got out of your stupid -1/-1 effect. So I really like Crux of Fate in the deck. It's definitely the place for Crux of Fate is when you have a dragon as your general. So pretty happy to have this one drop under $2. And then this is just a staple in any black deck that's not aggro. You're drawing tons of cards. It's cards like this that allow you to have a bad strategy like no counter spells. These are the kind of just value plays that you have to get yourself to a point where, hey, it's time to cast this card, and read the game state, kind of read what's going on, and figure out when you can use this for the most value. And again, we can do this -2/-2 effect. Silumgar has 7 toughness, so any of these Mutilate kind of effects, oftentimes are not going to kill my general. Curse of the Swine is one of those, hey, I'm in trouble, let's just get rid of like 6 things. And the Exile is massively relevant in this format. You gotta just deal with stuff permanently if you can. And then this is one of those really cute cards that lets you get value out of the -1/-1 effect. You basically board wipe one of your opponents. And in a pinch, you just use this as a kind of a fog effect if someone's swinging all out at you. I run this over the Split Second black spell, whose name escapes me right now. Then you got some little utility lands for a little more removal. Mystifying Maze is a great repeatable effect in any kind of dirtily slower deck. Ghost Quarter just to deal with something that you have to. I recommend everyone runs Ghost Quarter and Arcane Lighthouse if they can. Even though this is pretty good against me, I still run it for the other hexproof creatures out there. So let's take other people's stuff. That's kind of the plan here. We need tempo plays and 2-for-1 plays against whoever's in the lead or whoever's coming at me. Notion Thief is one of the reasons you play blue-black. I mean, this card is just insane. Oftentimes people have draw effects that they can't control either, so they're guaranteed to draw 2 cards, and you're just going to get that card from them. I've cast this in response to a Treasure Cruise. I've cast it in response to a couple card draw spells, and every time it's just devastating. It's just really fun to do to people. So if for no other reason, play blue-black to run this guy. You won't regret it. Praetor's Grasp is one of those really cool cards where you can just go get whatever you need. In the early game, you can just get a land too. It's kind of funny if you need a land that bad. I don't get counter spells with this. I could, but I don't. Because that would be kind of cheesy when I'm telling everyone I'm not running counter spells. But I do go get the most powerful thing that I possibly can. And there are some bombs that I can cast in blue-black, a lot of which are already in the deck. Annex is one of those pet cards I really like to run. just slow somebody down. It's just a really cute card. Control Magic, Corrupted Conscience, Royal Elemental. These are all just, take the big general that's Voltroned up or take really important creatures. This is a really sweet card. I don't know if you've ever cast this, but if you can hold this up and cast it at the right time, it's just a total blowout. It's a really sweet card, and it's just a great way to out-tempo somebody in the late game when things are sort of even. Stealing generals is the way to go. Supplant Form is kind of a similar effect. It deals with a creature that's already in play. If there's an ETB effect on that creature, it's insane. If you do this during combat, it's insane. This card's really sweet to cast. And these are the kind of cards I can run instead of counter spells. So I've been having a lot of fun playing this deck and doing big splashy things. These cards have become a little bit cliche in the format, but they're just value cards that you should run if you're playing black. And Rise from the Grave is just one more of those effects to get a creature from my opponent's graveyard. Spell Twine and Grave Betrayal, these are some of the big finishers in the deck here. You can copy something from your graveyard and then hit a removal spell or a ramp spell or just whatever is going on in the game. These are just great late game cards. Once Grave Betrayal is on the battlefield, you will become a little bit of a target, so sometimes you have to be careful when you cast this, but if you can Grave Betrayal into a Wrath effect, you get so far ahead in the game. This is just one of those cards that once you've seen it in play, you just have a great respect for it. It's really cool, really flavorful effect for these colors. And then I run these big giant Primordials because when we get to that point in the late game where I need to make a huge play, top decking one of these is just what the doctor ordered. It puts you right back in the game when you're behind, and then these are the kind of effects too where you can reanimate them later or clone them or copy them and just run away. So those are the value 2-for-1s. I've got a little bit left to show you. We got some creatures in here and some other finishers. So I really like this little cut purse guy. If he doesn't die right away, you can draw a couple cards off him to replace himself and put your opponents a little bit behind. I don't run a ton of discard. This deck is a little bit more of a welcome to the format kind of deck, so there should be less feel-bad moments in the early game. But I really like grinding value out of this little guy. He's also another one that's fun to clone or have a couple copies of. Hunted Phantasm, not a great card, but I run it just because it's really cute with the Silumgar effect. So you cast it and give your opponent a bunch of tokens, and then you swing and they all die. I mean, a 3-mana 4/6 unblockable isn't like insane value or anything, but it's just funny. And it's also one of those early political cards where you make a deal with somebody who otherwise would be a threat to you, give them some goblins, and they're going to let those goblins loose on another player. Next thing you know, there's a little vendetta going with two of your opponents, and meanwhile you're just ramping and drawing cards and getting ready for the late game. So there's a lot of layers to EDH, and if you use these cards correctly and you have opponents that are willing to make deals with you, they can really help you in the game. Archaeomancer, just kind of a value chump blocker, get a spell back. Whirler Rogue, I really like because it's 3 bodies. They can chump block, and you can also use it later in the game to make sure your general gets through. So you tap 2 artifacts, whether it's one of these Thopters that's still alive or just a mana rock you don't need anymore, and you just make something unblockable so that you can get one of those Cypher triggers that I showed you earlier, or hey, even with this Dimir Cutpurse guy, you can get some value out of it. So, all right, let's do a couple dragons here. I've got 3 dragons in the deck. The effect does stack, so the more dragons I have, the better. But I haven't really found this to be exploitable. I didn't run a ton of dragons or changelings, but the best ones are Icefall Regent because it locks down maybe a Voltron general that's going to be coming at you, and it's a little bit difficult to remove with the extra 2. And then Karen Wanderer is a really cool card. It counts all of the graveyards, and if there's creatures with any of these effects in the graveyard, this guy gets it. So it's a 5-mana 4/4 with a ton of upside, and the fact that it's a dragon, doesn't die to Crux of Fate and things like that. That's kind of the reason I ran it. I thought it'd be a fun card to play. Steel Hellkite makes a lot of sense in this deck. It's one of the very few ways I have to deal with artifacts and enchantments. And it's a dragon, so why not? This is a new guy for us here. Sire Stagnation was just printed, and it just dropped under 2. It gives me a pretty nice threat in play with 5 power, and it gives me more card draw. So if my opponent wants to keep playing lands, they're going to have to give me cards to do so. So pretty cool card. Whip of Erebos, really nice. Later in the game, threats that your opponents have dealt with, like the Steel Hellkite, I mean, you just whip it back, and it's just devastating to get some more value out of something that your opponent already thought they had dealt with. And it's also really good with the Primordials. It's good with any ETB effect, like the Clone, or even the Whirler Rogue is fine. And the Lifelink is one of the only ways for me to make sure I'm not dying to just general normal damage from creatures and stuff. So this card's almost goes in every single black deck. You'll get a ton of value out of it. Temporal Trespass, just one more little sneaky way for me to be able to tap out and do something, or finish the game with Silumgar's general damage. And then finally, Rite of Replication. We've got enough early game disruption and card draw and ramp effects that we can shrug off 9 mana as a cost. I mean, we're definitely going to be able to get to this, and we're hopefully going to hit something really sweet and use it to finish out the game. So that is my blue-black counterless control Silumgar, the Drifting Death deck. Again, counterless control, not the smartest strategy when you're doing a bunch of obnoxious things like annexing people's lands or making them discard, but I wanted to power down a little bit. I wanted to make sure I'm doing something that I haven't done before. There's enough good stuff in the deck to kind of back up the cuteness of some of the things that I'm trying to do. So I've had a lot of fun with this deck. If you ever want to come play test it, come on out to Card Kingdom on Thursday nights. We've got all of the deck lists in the format in the Facebook group, which is linked below, and I've got the deck list for Silumgar in the links as well. Feel free to comment or ask any questions, make suggestions. Thanks for watching, you guys.